The smell of roasted turkey and spiced pumpkin pie drifted through Aunt Lorraine's Chicago brownstone, but the warmth of the food couldn't thaw the frost in the air whenever the topic shifted to my career. I sat near the end of the long oak table, quietly stirring my cranberry sauce, while the rest of my family swapped life updates like stock tips. Aunt Lorraine loved hosting these annual Thanksgiving banquets, especially now that her PR firm, Bennett Co, was thriving. The dining room walls flaunted her success. Plaques from major campaigns, glossy magazine spreads, and photos with high-profile clients. "So, Emily," my cousin Grace said, slicing into her turkey with all the grace of a surgeon, "still working on, what was it, the computer thing?" I smiled faintly. "Still running my AI solutions company?" "That's nice, dear," Aunt Lorraine added with a saccharine tone, "though I admit I don't fully understand what that means." Lorraine, perched at the head of the table like royalty, swirled her wine before delivering the line I'd been expecting. Translation: she's at home, playing with code, pretending it's a career. The jab landed, but I didn't flinch. I'd had 3 years of practice. For as long as I could remember, these dinners ended with her sermon about real businesses. Lorraine's definition was simple: an office full of staff-catered lunches and Fortune 500 clients. My mom tried to step in. "She's doing well, Lorraine, really well." Lorraine let out a sharp laugh. "Please, a laptop in an apartment isn't a business. It's a hobby that pays for coffee and maybe internet bills." Across the table, my teenage cousin Ethan looked up from his phone, curious. "What do you actually do, Emily?" "I design artificial intelligence systems for corporations," I explained. "We help them automate operations, analyze massive datasets, and boost efficiency." Lorraine waved her fork dismissively. "Buzzwords. Automation, algorithms. It's smoke and mirrors. Real companies deliver tangible results." "Like PR campaigns?" I asked lightly. "Exactly," she said, chin high. "Bennett & Co. employs 50 people, serves Fortune 500 clients, and just signed Westbrook Financial. That's measurable impact." Grace chimed in, proud as ever. "Mom's firm is unstoppable right now." I smiled, because what they didn't know, Westbrook Financial's AI overhaul, the one saving them millions, was signed by me. "It's our biggest account ever. $3,200,000, 0 cents annual contract," Aunt Lorraine said proudly, dabbing the corner of her mouth with a linen napkin. Real money for real work. I kept eating in silence, wondering how many more Thanksgivings I could endure like this. Another round of explaining my life to people who didn't really want to understand it. "Emily," Lorraine continued, warming to her favorite subject, "you're 30 years old. A computer science degree from Northwestern. You could be making 6 figures at Google or Amazon instead of pretending your hobby is a business." "Maybe she likes being independent," Grace offered weakly. "Independence doesn't pay for health insurance," Lorraine snapped. "Independence doesn't build retirement. It doesn't get you a mortgage. Fine isn't good enough, Emily. Stop pretending. Get a real job already. Join the corporate world like a responsible adult." The doorbell rang. Lorraine frowned, checking her Cartier watch. "We're not expecting anyone else. Caterers left hours ago." "I'll get it," Uncle Mark said, rising from his chair. Voices murmured in the foyer, then footsteps approached the dining room. When Mark returned, he wasn't alone. A tall man in a tailored navy suit followed, his presence commanding the room. "Lorraine," Mark said, hesitant, "this gentleman says he's here on an urgent business matter." The man stepped forward, and recognition hit me instantly. James Wellington, CEO of Westbrook Financial. I'd seen his face on the cover of Forbes just last month. Lorraine practically glowed. "Mr. Wellington, what a surprise. We weren't expecting—" But James's attention wasn't on her. His eyes landed on me, and his expression lit up. "Emily, there's my favorite AI architect." His grin was wide and genuine as he strode toward me. "I was hoping I'd run into you this weekend." Lorraine's fork clattered onto her plate. "James," I said warmly, standing to shake his hand. "Good to see you. How's the rollout going?" "Better than we ever imagined," he said enthusiastically. The predictive analytics system you built increased our portfolio performance by 23% in 6 months. The board is calling it the most successful tech implementation in company history. Silence blanketed the table, thick and absolute. Grace stared. Lorraine's jaw tightened. And me? I just smiled and reached for the cranberry sauce. The silence in the dining room was deafening. Forks hovered midair, glasses stilled. Every pair of eyes was fixed on me and the man standing at my side. "I'm sorry," Aunt Lorraine managed, her voice trembling. "You two know each other?" James looked almost amused. "Know each other? Lorraine, Emily is the architect behind our entire AI transformation. She's the reason Westbrook Financial now leads the market in predictive analytics." "AI transformation?" Grace echoed, faintly. James's grin widened. "Emily designed a machine learning platform that processes billions of data points every second, analyzing market trends, predicting risks, and identifying investment opportunities no human team could ever spot. It's game-changing technology." The room seemed to tilt. Lorraine's face drained of color. "But she works from her apartment," she stammered. James chuckled. "Apartment?" "Emily runs her operation from a converted warehouse in Fulton Market. I've seen it. Secure servers, clean rooms, hardware labs. Her infrastructure rivals most Fortune 500 R&D departments." Ethan's eyes were huge, like a secret tech layer. "More like a high-security research facility," I said lightly. "I prefer an environment designed for innovation, not cubicles and office politics." James nodded. "When we were evaluating vendors, every major consulting firm pitched us cookie-cutter solutions. Emily was the only one who proposed custom architecture. It took 8 months to build and train the system on 15 years of market data, then adapted to real-time conditions. Honestly, it's some of the most advanced machine learning I've ever seen." Grace leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. "How much does something like that cost?" James glanced at me, then back at the stunned faces around the table. "The initial build contract was $4,700,000, 0 cents. Annual optimization and maintenance is another $2,300,000, 0 cents. A sharp crack broke the silence. Aunt Lorraine's wineglass slipping from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. $7 million? She gasped. James smiled warmly at me. "Worth every penny." I looked around the table, meeting each wide-eyed stare with calm composure. "So," I said, reaching for the cranberry sauce, "still think independence doesn't pay?" "That's just the beginning," James said smoothly. "Emily has similar contracts with Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, and 3 major insurance firms. Honestly, her client list is one of the most exclusive in the entire AI consulting space." "Goldman Sachs?" Grace's voice was a whisper. I nodded casually. "We built their fraud detection platform. It reduced false positives by 89%, while catching 34% more actual fraud cases." Lorraine's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "And the insurance companies?" "Claims processing automation," I explained. "What used to take weeks of manual review now happens in minutes, with better accuracy than human auditors." James pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward her. "According to last month's Forbes feature, Emily's company, Apex AI Solutions, is valued at roughly $47 million, 0 cents. Projected revenue this year? 0.10 cents. The silence that followed was so absolute I could hear the grandfather clock in the hall ticking like a metronome of disbelief. 23 million? Ethan breathed. Revenue, not profit, I clarified, taking a sip of water. But yes, it's been a solid year. James chuckled. She's being modest. Emily's profit margins are north of 60%. Most consulting firms would kill for numbers like that. 60%, Lorraine repeated faintly, as if the words were foreign. James leaned forward. That's the beauty of custom AI systems. Once the core architecture is built, scaling is fast and cost-efficient. Emily's essentially licensing transformative technology to companies that need it yesterday. But You don't even have employees, Grace stammered. I have 12 full-time contractors, I corrected. Experts in machine learning, cybersecurity, and systems integration. We're lean, but that's why we outpace companies 10 times our size. James nodded approvingly. When Westbrook needed a major trading system overhaul, Emily's team delivered in 3 days. A traditional vendor? 3 months. Minimum. Lorraine stared at me like I'd grown wings. But you live so simply, that old Honda. Those jeans. I smiled. Because expensive cars don't make algorithms run faster. I care about the work, not the optics. James laughed. Old Honda? Emily, didn't you just buy that custom EV with the experimental autonomous system? I shrugged. Prototype, still in testing. If you think Thanksgiving just ended with a shattered wine glass, think again. The real shocker comes next. Subscribe now so you don't miss the moment everything changes. I'm testing autonomous driving algorithms for a potential automotive client, I said, keeping my tone casual. A prototype car? Ethan's voice was hushed, reverent. Like, one of a kind? There are only 3 in existence, James confirmed. Emily's essentially driving a $2 million 0-cents research vehicle. $2 million? And Lorraine sagged back in her chair, as if gravity had doubled. James's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then looked apologetic. Forgive me for interrupting Thanksgiving, but I actually came here on business, Lorraine. We need to discuss Bennett Co. as contract. Lorraine straightened slightly, seizing the lifeline of familiarity. Of course. Is there an issue with the campaign strategy? Not exactly an issue, James replied carefully. More of a strategic pivot. A pivot? Westbrook's board has decided to overhaul our marketing approach based on insights from Emily's AI analysis. Lorraine's poise faltered. AI analysis? The predictive system flagged troubling trends in traditional advertising, I explained gently. Consumer patterns indicate that old-school marketing will lose 40% of its impact within 18 months. James nodded. We need an entirely new model. AI-driven personalization, dynamic content generation, predictive targeting, automated optimization. Frankly, it's beyond the scope of a traditional PR firm. Lorraine's knuckles whitened on her napkin. You're canceling our contract? Not canceling, James said smoothly. Redirecting. We'd like Bennett Co. to partner with Apex AI on the new campaign. I let the words settle like a thunderclap. Partner with Emily? Grace whispered, stunned. She'd lead the technical side, James confirmed. Your firm would handle creative execution under her guidance. It's the perfect blend of strategy and innovation. The irony was delicious. Aunt Lorraine, who had mocked me for years, was now being offered a lifeline under my supervision. The partnership would be worth $6,800,000 0 cents annually, James continued, split between tech and creative, with Apex taking the larger share given the complexity of the system. Lorraine looked like she'd swallowed glass. 6.8 million? AI-driven marketing is the future, James said simply. I smiled faintly, setting my glass down. Guess independence does pay after all. Companies that fail to adapt will be left behind, James said matter-of-factly. Emily's technology gives us a minimum 5-year competitive advantage over firms still relying on traditional methods. 5 years, Aunt Lorraine whispered, her voice barely audible. At least, I added calmly, the beauty of AI is continuous learning. The longer we partner with a client, the smarter the algorithms become at predicting and influencing consumer behavior. James checked his watch and smiled. I should let you all enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving. Emily, can we lock in a meeting next week about Westbrook's European expansion? We're planning a full rollout. Tuesday afternoon works, I replied smoothly. Excellent. He shook my hand firmly, then turned to Lorraine. Lorraine, have your team call my office Monday morning to finalize the partnership structure. This could be a tremendous opportunity for Bennett Co. if you're ready to embrace technology. When James left, silence filled the dining room like fog. The clinking of cutlery and hum of conversation never returned. Lorraine sat motionless, eyes fixed on the shattered stem of her wineglass. Finally she spoke. "Emily! Why didn't you ever tell us?" I met her gaze evenly. "Because every time I tried, you told me it wasn't a real business. Eventually, it seemed easier to let you believe what you wanted." Grace blinked rapidly. "But $47 million? 0 cents? I shrugged. "It's not about the money, it's about solving meaningful problems, making systems smarter, reducing fraud, freeing people from repetitive tasks so they can focus on creativity and strategy." Across the table, Ethan was furiously typing on his phone. "Emily, you're famous. Like, really famous." I laughed softly. "Tech media likes to cover AI breakthroughs." "No, listen," he said, reading aloud. "Wired, Harvard Business Review, TechCrunch, they call you the most influential AI architect under 35. Says your solutions have generated over $2.3 billion, 0 cents in client value." "Value creation," I corrected gently. "Our systems help clients make better decisions, cut costs, and increase efficiency. Everyone wins." Lorraine finally lifted her head, her voice unsteady. "Emily, I don't even know what to say. I spent years telling you to get a real job, and all this time you've been building something bigger than anything I've ever imagined." "You didn't know," I said softly, "and your agency is successful too. We just live in different worlds." "I was so dismissive," Aunt Lorraine admitted quietly, her voice carrying the weight of regret. "So condescending. I acted like you were wasting time on computer games when you were building revolutionary technology." "You were trying to protect me," I said gently. "You wanted me to have stability, a clear path to success. I understand that." "Stability?" She gave a hollow laugh. "Emily, you have more security than anyone at this table. You're working with companies that can't function without you." "The partnership?" Grace blurted. "Would you really work with Mom's agency after everything?" Paused. "AI works best when paired with human creativity. Bennett Co understands branding and consumer psychology. I understand technology. Together, we could create campaigns that resonate emotionally and leverage predictive analytics." "You'd really do that?" Lorraine asked, disbelief softening into something like hope. "Family is family," I replied, "and the best systems learn from mistakes. Maybe we can too." The rest of dinner blurred into questions about machine learning and Fortune 500 boardrooms. The woman who once told me to get a real job now scribbled notes about AI-driven personalization. As we cleared dishes, Ethan cornered me. "Emily, why didn't you defend yourself earlier when Mom said all those things?" "Because arguing rarely changes minds," I said. "Results do." He hesitated, then grinned. "If you're worth millions, why still drive that old Honda?" I laughed. "Because cars don't write better algorithms. The money's a byproduct of doing what I love. The real rewards are curiosity, meaningful work, strong relationships. Those can't be bought." "Do you think I could learn AI?" His eyes shone with something familiar. "If you're willing to dive into math, computer science, and statistics, absolutely," I said. "The field needs minds brave enough to ask impossible questions." "Like what?" "Like how to teach machines to see patterns we can't. How to automate tasks requiring intuition. How to solve problems we haven't even identified yet." "That sounds amazing." "It is, and maybe in 10 years, you'll blow everyone's mind at Thanksgiving the way James did today." Hours later, I drove home in my reliable Honda, smiling at the irony. Lorraine had spent years measuring my success by standards that never fit me, and I'd let her. Explaining felt pointless. Until now. The partnership could be transformative. Her team brought decades of storytelling expertise. My systems brought precision and foresight. Together, we might create something neither could alone. My phone buzzed. Started looking at Northwestern's CS program. Thanks for the inspiration. Maybe the real win wasn't Lorraine's realization. Maybe it was sparking curiosity in the next generation. After all, the best systems and families learn, adapt, and pass knowledge forward. What do you think? Did I handle this the right way? Should I have defended myself earlier or let my results speak like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And if you've ever been underestimated by family or told to get a real job, share your story. Let's start a conversation about resilience and quiet strength. If I've learned anything, it's this. You don't need to shout your worth to be valuable. Let your work, your persistence, and your passion do the talking. Build something that excites you, even if no one understands it yet. Eventually, the results will speak louder than words. If you enjoyed this story and want to see what happens next, subscribe and turn on notifications. Your support helps me share more stories that inspire people to chase their dreams, no matter who doubts them.